The most underrated movie of 2019 is Fighting With My Family, which stars Dwayne The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and Florence Pugh, although Dwayne Johnson's in it for about 5 minutes. And it's the story of WWE wrestler Paige, how she basically goes from this small wrestling family in Norwich, where she is literally just beating up her mother for a living, all the way to Florida to train to be a WWE wrestler. And it's this big fish out of water story, and not a single element of it should work, and yet it somehow does. Like, she is an old girl from Norwich meeting all these like beautiful blonde bikini women in America, and they're completely different. And that's, you know exactly what film that is when you hear about it. And it's like the British fish out of water in America, and you know exactly what film that is when you think about it. And yet none of it is like that. Like The Rock and Stephen Merchant as a creative duo should not work at all, and yet somehow this film all comes together, and it's got that massive, big, silly American wrestling feel to it, which The Rock brings, but also this like brilliant, quirky indie charm, which is just what Stephen Merchant bleeds. And it is a wrestling film that's about like heart and reality, when of course everything about wrestling is big, bombastic and fake and all this. And it's a great little story about personal identity and how you do change regardless of what you're doing, but it doesn't mean necessarily that you change exactly who you are. And it has Goth Lena Headey in it, which obviously ticked all of my boxes, and Nick Frost is in his only likeable role since Hot Fuzz, and just so many parts of it are like warm and loving and nice, but at the same time it's all set to this stupid backdrop of here is professional wrestling in America, boom, slam, and Vince Vaughn's in it randomly. And it's not so much that people didn't like this film, because I always struggle with what underrated actually is. It got like really good write-ups. It's just that so many people dismissed it out of hand because, oh, here is a story about a girl going to be a wrestler. That's going to be really, really stupid. And in fact, what it was one of the best, most heartwarming films I've seen in a long time.
Now we look at 2019 and we go, what's coming out this year? Rise of Skywalker is going to be up there. People really want to see that. I hear Parasite's really good over in America. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, kind of like divisive. But no one was really looking at the sequel to The Shining though, was they? Like, everyone held The Shining up as the Kubrick's, like, one of his best films ever, one of the most scariest films of the time. We have the whole sitting there in the snow going, you know, a lot of memorable moments. But it's just weird. Dr. Sleep as a story never really resonated as something that people wanted to see on the screen. Then it comes around and we see Ewan McGregor, hello there, Obi-Wan Kenobi's finest, playing Dan Torrance, and picking up from kind of about 20 years later, we see that, wait a minute, this wasn't a story that just was happy ever after. He's sure his dad is now gone and dead, but he was being stalked by ghosts for like the rest of his life, and he had the shine, and he was also living in a world where other people with the shine were being hunted down. And we pick up as he's now getting back reintroduced into his world and meets a new child who's got a similar sort of power, who's also being hunted down by this band of miscreants who are literally sucking the shine out of human bodies. And you're like, wait a minute, this is taking a really dark turn. And I've gone from just going, yeah, let's just see this film where that guy who played Obi-Wan Kenobi to, I want to see what's going to happen. And the whole build up to it and the finale was actually really interesting. And they used the Overlook Hotel in a very interesting way. And they even kind of spoiled part of the film in the trailer, which I was surprised of when we went in there. But all in all, I think it actually turned out to be one of the better films of this year, and more people should see it.
I don't think that this film that I'm about to say is generally amazing, but I do think it is underrated, and that is the Lego Movie 2. Now, I loved the first Lego Movie. I think everyone, when that was first announced, everyone was like, oh, this is some real bad product placement BS right here. But I, loving Lego, was like, nah, I'm here for this. I'm absolutely loving it. And then the Lego Movie 2 kind of released in an awkward spot, released earlier this year, quite early on. And after, obviously, Phil Lord Miller had the tremendous success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, following that up with the Lego Movie 2 is obviously going to mean that certain things get overlooked. And unfortunately, I do feel as though the Lego Movie 2 has been completely overlooked this year. I think it got snubbed for Best Animated Film at the Golden Globes, which is a shame because I think the Lego Movie 2, even as someone who is an only child, I think it has a very valuable message for those who did grow up with siblings. It's a fantastic story all about, you know, the lesson of like sharing and coming to share your toys with your siblings. And there's a great kind of commentary on toxic masculinity there as well, Chris Pratt's main character, and leading into the more action-heavy nature of like modern Lego sets in a way. It's weird. It's really good though. And I feel as though just everyone kind of slept on it. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was as good as the first one, but certainly I felt as though it was underrated. And I generally thought it was better than the most recent How to Train Your Dragon, which I didn't really care for. So I do feel as though this one has been overlooked, and I would encourage everyone to go watch it because there's some great songs in it as well. The Queen Whatever I Want to Be, that's great. That's a bop. I really enjoyed it. I think that if you like the first Lego movie, there's no reason why you shouldn't go check out the sequel. So yeah. Lego Movie 2.
So I know it's a weird take because we had Endgame, we had Infinity War, we've had all these crazy films based on superheroes that everyone has absolutely adored. But I actually think Shazam is the underrated film of 2019, mainly because the DCEU was like, obviously people enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it because I'm a huge dork, and I want people who aren't huge dorks to enjoy superhero films. So obviously all this dark stuff, all this extremely kind of weird stuff, and the stuff that required you to know a lot about the DC wasn't the best idea. Then we got Shazam, which is fun, it's got good morals, it's got a nice superhero that people didn't know about, but right now in 2019, people are willing to hear about Shazam, even if they're like, what, he's like a kid that turns into an adult, isn't that the plot of Big? So basically, I don't know, just the idea of the fact that DC have finally managed to create that sort of Marvel universe without going too Marvel universe, I absolutely adore, because yeah, I mean, I want my Batman. I want a good Batman film that isn't just the Dark Knight stuff all over again. And I think Shazam is definitely the gateway to it, if not the premium sign that we're about to get there.
I think the most underrated movie of 2019 was The Long Shot. So it was sort of underplayed because people can't really market comedy movies anymore unless they're like Will Ferrell movies, which people go and see even though they're rubbish, or Adam Sandler films, which people go and see even though they're rubbish. Uncut Gems doesn't count. But this film is like, it's not exactly like revelatory or very innovative. It's from Jonathan Levine, who made the most underrated film of the millennium so far, which is The Whackness, which nobody has seen when I bring it up, but it's brilliant. It's got Drake or Josh from Drake and Josh in, and it's about a drug dealer, but it's brilliant. It has the best soundtrack. Go and watch that. I've just sabotaged my own thing, but go and watch that. So yeah, Jonathan Levine made this comedy, which is about a sort of anti-Trumper political writer who ends up working for a presidential candidate.
I'm laughing at Trump.
Yes, I thought you were. Ends up working for a presidential candidate, played by Charlize Theron. He's Seth Rogen. Oh, they're an odd couple. They're nothing like each other. She can't be seen with people who do drugs and get drunk and fall down at parties, and that is that guy. So you see where it's going immediately, and it's sort of like a Romeo and Juliet story, except it's Stonio and that hasn't worked, has it? Yeah, and they sort of clash over her principles of wanting to look after the environment as her political card, and she gets pressured by like people who fund the parties, and one of them is played by Andy Serkis in completely unnecessary full rubber prosthetic mask. It doesn't even look like him. It's like, why have they spent so much money on this? But it was brilliant anyway. And it's like, it's funny, it's quite heartfelt, and it comes to the right conclusion, even though it has a little bit of a nasty sting before the end, which is what romantic comedies should be. They should be mostly nasty and then a little bit of nice. And it's an absolute travesty that nobody went and saw it. It made no money, and it deserves to be seen much more now, so you know what to do.
My most underrated film is one that was just really good fun going to the cinema to watch it, and I feel like it didn't pick up quite the traction it deserved, which was Ready or Not. And it's kind of like 2019's version of You're Next. It's like a home invasion, slashery, kind of, like I say slasher, I don't mean like slasher villain, I mean lots of people getting slashed up. It's about a bride who gets married to a lovely, very wealthy husband and finds out that his family are mental and all subscribe to this ritual they do when anybody joins the family, where they have to have a games night. They own a games emporium. They have all sorts of games, all sorts of fun, tomfoolery, Twister, checkers, Who's Who, you name it, they have it. But the one that they make Grace play is, they basically pull it out of a box, like a mystery box, and it tells what game they have to play. And she pulls it out, and lo and behold, it is hide and seek. Some normal game, you think, that's fine. No, not in this household. This is why it makes it a horror movie, is that hide and seek means she has to hide, and when they seek her, they kill her, which isn't a very welcoming way to be brought into a family, dying, but it's like a one-off tradition sort of thing, but to say any more would spoil it. So basically she's pulled the one card which makes this whole ritual work, and they have to hunt her down and kill her. They don't necessarily want to, but they have to. And the whole film is her trying to escape, not taking it very seriously, and then realizing, oh, I'm going to get murdered. And it's just such good fun. It's got this like black streak of comedy down the middle that works perfectly well. It's clever. It knows exactly what sort of film it wants to be and is, and plays nicely within all of those tropes, but doesn't take itself too seriously ever. And obviously it has Samara Weaving in, who is, oh, she's a revelation. She's a gift to the world. I love Samara Weaving. If you haven't seen The Babysitter, watch The Babysitter. That is prime underrated material. And she comes back again and absolutely knocks it out of the park in this. Like, she is horror's gift to the world. She's in Ash vs. Evil Dead as well. Everything she is doing for horror movies is just chef's kiss. So she is the most underrated gem of this year. In this film, Ready or Not is like, it's a necessary film of the year, and not enough people have seen it. Like, it got really good reviews, it got really good box office pull, but people just don't remember it now. It's kind of like Crawl. Crawl came out this year, which was like obviously a bit of a banger with all of the alligator fighting and stuff. Surprisingly fine for a big monster movie that was a blockbuster house hunting alligator fight. And that was great as well. But yeah, Ready or Not, honestly, prime underrated material. Go and watch it. Good fun. Samara Weaving.